Hello, O community, and I appreciate you tuning into the Only Women Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Rosemary Cescolini, a former high school English teacher who transformed into a successful entrepreneur by pursuing a career in the field of manufacturing at Royal Door Limited, family-owned and operated business since 1975. There, I helped to revolutionize the industry by designing and building custom wood interior and exterior doors for thousands of people all over, including celebrities and professional athletes. Our products are featured in home and garden TV real estate, home renovation shows, on Netflix series, on the covers of construction and renovation magazines. Now, I have a new initiative, an organization called O, and it's built to empower young women as they venture into the business world and alternative careers. Here, you'll learn about resilient individuals who have taken charge of their own lives, and you'll discover the invaluable insights and wisdom they have to offer. Today, we have a very special episode on the O podcast. Two awesome guests for the price of one. We're delighted to have on the show James Devinney and Casey Anderson, regular, everyday blue-collar dudes who've combined forces for a particular purpose, which is to gain, train, and of course, retain people in the blue-collar world. They are the co-creators of the Dirty and Driven podcast, media and training company for the construction industry. Their main mission is to attract people to the blue-collar world and teach them to kick ass. This is exactly where both O and Dirty and Driven's missions perfectly align. We both recognize that there is a critical skilled labor shortage in all industries, construction, manufacturing, mining, and entrepreneurship, and we need to attract more people before our society comes to a grinding halt. Together, we can get the message out about the huge opportunities that exist for anybody that has both the drive and ambition to learn. Welcome to the podcast, James and Casey. So glad you're here today with us.
Man, I'm fired up after that intro. I don't know about you,
man.
Casey.
We need to have her do all of our intros.
Yeah, dude. I've got we just recorded our own podcast before this, and it's kind of like you're feeling good and you're warmed up and everything. But now I'm like, ooh, yeah, let's go.
Oh, I get always excited because I love my guests. I love doing the show. But when I listen to your podcast, I love how you pronounce your intro with the Dirty and Driven. If you don't mind doing that, I love hearing it.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the Dirty and Driven podcast. My name is James Devinney. I am your guest host. Joined today by the notorious Casey D.
How are you?
And we are a podcast where our mission is to gain, train, and retain solid people in the blue-collar world. We want to bring people to the blue-collar world, teach them how to kick ass.
I love that. And I also love the fact that Casey brings in one of my favorite actors, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when the Terminator. I'll be back. And you never forget about that. Awesome. So
it's funny. I do have to say, the other day I was telling Casey, I think it was our last Tuesday episode, him and I did together. I was telling him a story about how I was running an asphalt roller, and with my long hair, somebody said, "Man, I thought we got a new hot chick on the roller," but then I realized it was you, and I was like, concerning. All right. Compliments, I think, with the hot chick part. I don't know why he specifies hot, not just a new chick, but okay. And I guess hard look being on the Only Women Entrepreneurs right after being called a hot chick. So,
well, we kind of fit the bill then.
I guess.
You know what? One of our missions is inclusivity, and everyone's welcome to the show. So here you have it, guys. Yeah. I want to dig in and find out a little bit about each of you because, having an Only Women Entrepreneurs podcast where our following's mostly the lady population, not to say that we do have fellas, they don't know anything about James or Casey. So which one of you want to start by telling us a little bit about your background, like your education, your work experiences, so they get a good feel of who you are and where you're coming from?
Casey, you want to start or do you want me to start?
No, I can start. Let's see, my background. I kind of preface it with my father taught me a lot about work ethic. Not only was he in the military for 31 years, but he had a blue collar job with the refinery. Aside from that, he always had side hustles and stuff, always doing stuff to make extra money. Did he live beyond his means? Yeah, maybe he could have been more frugal, but with that being said, he taught me the value of work ethic, hard work, getting up, getting the job done.
Right.
When I was probably about 13 years old, my dad was always on me about getting out there and doing work. They were re-roofing a house next to my dad's house. And he was like, son, why don't you go over there, see if they need help? So sure enough, I walked over there and I started off as a shingle bitch. That's what we called them in roofing. And all I do is I'd hump shingles, any of the trash that was on the ground, I'd pick it up, haul it off. And I worked my way up to helping this guy out. When I was 13 or 14, I was making trips an hour out of town with this guy that I just started roofing with. And I was re-roofing houses out of town, all around Ponca City. And from there, it turned into my dad had some guys that he was in the service with that were framing houses. I went out and started framing the newest additions out here in Ponca City. And I went from there, starting out at ground level to working my way up to all types of construction. Had a short stint in college. I went to college just because I was supposed to go to college. I really didn't. That's what you were told to do. Why I was there, I don't know. I got my associates. I was going for my bachelor's in advertising. I wanted to do creative advertising because I wanted to write beer jingles for Coors Light, because I saw that Bud Light had the coolest commercials back in the day, but I was always a Silver Bullet fan at my young age, and I thought that I could help them do some pretty cool creative advertising. Well, needless to say, I'd never finished my education career. About that time, there was a big hailstorm that hit back in Ponca City, and when it did, it tore up a bunch of roofs, a bunch of siding, and all that. I got back with one of my roofing bosses, and I made some good jack, making money with him for not only a couple summers, a couple of years. That led into me back to framing, remodeling. Fast forward, in about 2005 or 6, I got hired on with the pipeline for our energy company here in town. I worked for the pipeline, but with all of that experience that I do a bunch of shift work, so I have a lot of time off. And in my free time, I do maintenance, remodels. I do a lot of emergency repairs, kind of handy-manish type stuff. But anything from small HVAC to small plumbing to roof repairs, sheetrock, exterior, interior. I'm James's go-to guy. I'm his family's go-to guy, and I'm also a go-to guy for other people that need help. It's just, I think what's helped me, like blue collar wise or just in life, is the curiosity to always want to learn. If that guy can do it, if that girl can do it, why can't I do it? Absolutely. And I see that with anything. Now, granted, there's a learning curve at first. When you get into something, you're going to have your mishaps and you're going to stub your toe at times. But then once you learn from your mistakes and lean on people for some advice, you can be that person that you admire and look up to.
So what's your role at the pipeline?
I'm a pipeline operator. So I'm in
describe that, because like I said, for our audience, this is all new stuff. So a description's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in the oil and gas industry, and that's literally the main pipeline that we have all of our energy here in the world. I mean, it's oil and gas, and it moves to the market primarily via pipelines. That's how it gets to the market. Yeah. Then it goes from pipelines to either semi-trucks. Semi-trucks will take diesel and gasoline to gas stations from, the pipeline terminals. Well, I'm a pipeline operator, so all of the raw crude oil that comes out of the ground either gets injected into pipelines from where it comes out of the ground, or it goes via truck to the refineries. The refineries take the incoming crude oil, they refine it, they do all their little goody to it, and by the time it's all said and done, they'll have a finished jet fuel, low sulfur diesel, subgrade gasoline, premium gasoline, polypropylene, propane, isobutane, incredible asphalt products like James deals with, Coke, and that's not the white Coke either.
It's black Coke.
That's black Coke, pet Coke, like for furnaces and stuff.
Don't snort that.
But when it comes out of the refinery, because it all came in mostly via pipeline or got transported to the refinery, when it's all said and done, then it's a finished good product. And whatever the market needs, we get into those tanks, our pipeline, which I oversee. We open our manual operated valves or whatever type of valves that we have. We kick on our booster pumps. It goes through our meters. Then it goes out to the world. We have, where I'm at in Oklahoma, we have 7 different pipelines that leave our refinery. So I'm the last one. I'm the one that moves it, and I'm the last one that sees it before it goes not into the ground, but before it goes into the pipelines that go in the ground. Then it goes out to the market to, up north, south, east, west.
Wow. And you describing that, I have to say that you guys are the lifeline of society. Like, people think it's their cell phones. Oh my God, how many likes did I get on this, or how many followers? But what you just described, if that process didn't happen, society would be completely shut down. We wouldn't be able to function.
So, fun fact about pipelines and stuff, here in Oklahoma, there's a town called Cushing, Oklahoma. And it's I wouldn't say it's a 1-horse town, but maybe a 2-horse town. There's not much there, but they call it the heart of America because it's where all the major pipelines intersect. Yeah. And they go all through this little town, just kind of near Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is where Oklahoma State University is. So it all intersects there, and it's a pretty volatile town. Like, at one point in time, they talk about during the Cold War, Russia had their top 10 nuke list or whatever, if they were going to nuke towns in the U.S. And it was actually on it just for what you're talking about, because you shut down the pipelines and we're going to have a hard time.
Wow. Yeah, that's good to know.
And one little caveat to that is, I'm in transportation with the company that I'm at, which we move the product via pipeline, and pipeline is the safest way to move, whether it's the raw crude oil out of the ground or it's the finished product going to market. It's by far, it's battle tested the safest way. Kicker is, you had proponents that were wanting to shut down pipelines. Well, the product is going to get to the market one way or the other, whether it's via pipeline, via rail, or via truck.
Yes.
So we can move literally our refinery here, and what we move, it's 220,000 barrels a day of bringing in crude oil. It's raw when it comes in.
Yeah.
And then it's out, it's finished. So we're finishing product 220,000 barrels a day. That's just our refinery. So if you shut down pipelines, if you shut down our refinery, that 220,000 barrels is going to go to market another way. So it's going to go via rail or via trucks. And then the likelihood of more accidents and things happening via, I don't know how many trucks it would take to move that product, or how many rail cars would have to be filled up and moved, when you could do it safely via a pipeline that can be monitored.
Oh, absolutely. And thinking at it with an environmental perspective, like, we've had derailments of trains, tractor trailers flipping over, whereas, like you said, the pipeline is the fastest, most efficient and safest way of getting that to market and to the needs of the consumers. So it is a very important aspect of our society, and I would prefer that would be through the pipelines as opposed to the other ways. Yeah,
and it's not like we put it in the pipe and it's blindly just going in the pipelines. We have you have pipeline monitoring systems to where our meters are proven to the T. We know exactly what we're putting in there. And at the destination point, however that is, destination point over here, once it gets to destination, they must be receiving the exact amount that we're putting in over here. Because if they're not, for one, the third party, a lot of times that's getting the product, they want to make sure that they're getting what they're charged for. So we're putting in X amount here. They want to make sure the X amount is coming in over here, right? Well, what happens is, when there's an imbalance of too much, like if we're injecting too much into the pipeline and there's less coming out here, if this meter is either metering wrong, or this more product is going somewhere else, hence maybe into the ground or somewhere like that. So then we would isolate the pipeline. We would isolate valves. We would do pressure tests on each one of those pipeline sections to make sure that they're holding the proper pressure and there's no leaks. We do inline inspections, to where I think it's an annual deal, to where we'll run inline inspection tools into the pipeline. They're called pipeline pigs. They're like multi-million-dollar tools that have tracking systems on them. We'll inject these into the pipeline and they'll go and they'll literally map out the whole pipeline from, where you put it into 100 miles away. And when they pull it out, that computer chip in there will show the pipeline wall thicknesses and stuff.
Yes.
And it'll even show the exact GPS location within a foot or two if the pipeline, if the pipe is supposed to be this thick and it shows some anomalies in it, where there's some pitting or, it's starting to lose its integrity, it'll show the exact spot to where they'll make a report. We'll send our field guys out. They'll go to the exact spot 12 miles away in a field, and they'll be within, when they dig, they'll be within a foot or two, and they'll see the exact ding that this inline inspection tool showed. Then they'll repair that pipe to where that pipe, hopefully won't have a leak in the future. I mean, this is the stuff that we do to protect from having spills or leaks or anything like that.
And I'm glad you brought this all out because it's so important. You've got right now environmentalists that are saying, we can't build any more pipelines or we got to shut them down. And you just explained the whole process, how safe it is. So it's a no-brainer that we should continue building pipelines so that things become more efficient. And that way we can protect the environment in that aspect. So thank you very much, Casey, for sharing all that.
And let me add something. Are they 100% efficient, leak proof? No, but nothing is 100%.
Absolutely not.
But I'd rather weigh the scales and put my money in moving via a pipeline than putting it on a vehicle or rail. So
exactly. All right, James, you're up. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I've been in the construction industry about 10 years. The reason I got into it, I was not like Casey, Casey's dad, blue collar, stuff like that. My dad was a lawyer, is a lawyer. Not hands-on people, my parents. They are not, they never were around it. I mean, growing up, it's like if something broke or we needed something, no one knew how to do anything in our house. It was like, okay, we need to call a plumber, we need to call an electrician, whatever.
Right.
The cool thing was my mom would make me watch them. She would always sit here and be like, hey, you need to learn how to do this. Like we don't have these skills, but by God, you're going to have these skills. So she would make me kind of watch these guys when they'd come over and do stuff. But, really my intro to the blue collar world came probably whenever I was like 14 or so. I started hanging out with farmer kids and stuff like that. Well, we'd go out and we'd play on the farm and stuff like that and just be outside, be around that stuff. It was cool to watch and see, and we'd help do little things here and there, haul hay, stuff like that. But really where I got my first start was whenever I was 15 years old and my parents said, you're going to have to buy your first vehicle. And I was like, what? And I was like, what you talking about? And they're like, I was like, you gave my sister a car. And they're like, yeah, well, we had that car. We don't have a car laying around right now. So we think it's important that you buy your own. And I was like, I was pissed. I mean, at the time, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
who doesn't want anything for free, right?
Yeah. I was like 14 years old and I was like, I don't know. I'd never been in a situation. I mean, my parents had always taught me to work hard in sports and everything. I mean, it was just like, you're going to work hard, but I'd never really had like my back against the wall like that. Like, you better just figure it out, buddy. So, they kind of told me that they're like, you have to buy your first car. And it was the best thing they could have ever done for me. And I learned that lesson quick. I went and, there's a guy who'd been doing some, dirt work and, landscaping, light construction around our house. And I asked him, I was like, hey, can I get a job? And he goes, yeah, dude, I need help all the time. And, it's $10 an hour cash every day he'd pay me. And it was like, hell yeah, let's go. And, that was where I got my foundation in the industry. And I mean, everything I do now, I did on a miniature level, with him, but I worked with him for a while, just doing landscaping and stuff and just learned some awesome values in the industry and things like that. And again, it was all new to me. I mean, being around heavy equipment, being around just a skid steer, an excavator or something, just, I had never been around it. So it's all new all the time, learning how to, do patio work or how to put grout between tiles, stuff like that. It's like, dang, dude, I've never it was just a whole new world that I'd never known of. And so I learned a lot from him, that first job, and got a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. Then that led to another contractor quoting something to my parents. And, my mom, I was probably a junior, senior in high school at this point, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like it was always, you're going to go to college. You better go to college. That was just the plan. Right. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what I wanted to do because my dad was like, well, do you want to be a lawyer? I mean, I've got a pretty good sized law firm. I'd love to, make it a family business type thing. And it didn't interest me. It didn't, we think different, we click different, and it's just not, we're just not, we don't think the same like that. You know what I mean? So, I was like, no, I don't want to be a lawyer. So I was going to go as like a mechanical engineer. Thank God I didn't do that, because that I learned after I went to college, it's just the engineering stuff wouldn't have been for me. But he said, how about you consider a construction degree? And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. I'll consider that. Well, I went and got a job for a building contractor, and I tried that out. Not my cup of tea. But I learned a lot from that, right? And then at that time, I still was like, well, maybe I just need to build different projects, and I wanted to go build stadiums. So I told the owner of my company now, still working for my landscaper on the side whenever I was, not working for the building company, and were working in the backyard of the guy that owns the company where I work now. And he says, hey, man, I heard you're getting this construction engineering degree. If you want a job after you get out of college, let me know if you want to work for me in the summers. Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, Lee, I really appreciate that, man. That's cool. I have no interest in building roads. So
you're honest about that, right?
Yeah. I was like, that really just has no interest in me at all. Well, I kept working for that building contractor for a while, and I was like, man, this just is not my thing. Like, it just slow paced.
It wasn't clicking with you.
Yeah, it just was slow paced. It wasn't my thing. And some people love it. I'm not dissing at all. It just, for me, it was not it. You're arguing with an architect about like the color of mortar on a building, or like, oh yeah. I'd go on vacation for a week and come back, and it didn't really look that different. I was used to jobs where like you could leave, like if you went on vacation for a week and you came back, the job was like, oh shit, whoa, it's almost done. Like, so it was like being gone for a week and come back. It's like, site looks the same to me. It was just hard for me to be, in that. And then, whenever I was in college, I went into college, right? And I went 4 years, I got my degree, and I'm not dissing college. Could I be where I'm at without college? Probably. But I would have had to know the right plan and the right moves of action. And I don't know that I would have known that. So college was a good 4 years for me that I had a plan. I knew what degree I wanted to have. I intentionally sought out work experience and internships. And what did that degree do for me? It opened doors. And the doors that it opened were very good. It was, come in here, we'll teach you, you're getting this degree. And although I didn't learn that much from my degree, it taught me how to work in an office and how to work on the paper side of things, I guess. And it taught me how to just solve problems and figure things out. But again, I went in with a plan. I didn't just have a blind, aimless degree, and I had some work experience under my belt. So I kind of knew a direction I wanted to go into. And then I had, there was a road contractor, one of the biggest ones in Oklahoma, came and spoke to one of our classes. And for the most part, the curriculum was building based. And so again, it didn't super interest me, but they came and talked, and they said, dude, you ought to consider heavy civil construction. They're like, building roads, everybody thinks it's boring. It's the same thing every job. It's just, just take off down the road. And they're like, dude, every job's different. Moving dirt, concrete, asphalt. It's just pure raw construction, big machines, moving stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Cause like, in a certain sense, I'm a minimalist, and I like things stripped down, natural, raw, like down to the food I eat, the stuff I do. It's just, I love that just bare bones, nitty gritty stuff. I love it. And so like whenever they're explaining what heavy civil construction is, I go, oh shit, that's awesome. And so I immediately call that guy that just a few months before I'd said, man, I have no interest in building roads. I call him up and I said, hey, can I meet with you today? He said, yeah, come on in. So I drive an hour to go meet with him because I'm at college and we're about an hour away from where I went in Oklahoma State. And so I drive an hour immediately. I get in the truck after class and I said, all right, I'll be there after my class. It sounds good. And I was like, all right, man, I had a change of heart. I want to work for you. And he's like, okay. And he's like, well, here's your start date. I was like, cool. So we did that, and I went and I spent a couple of years on an asphalt crew, between school and stuff like that, laying asphalt, learning how to run equipment, doing that, and just hard work, man. I mean, just hot out there doing it. And that's where I really like found my passion. And that's what I do now is I do project management and estimating for the same company. And they are, it's fun, man. I just love building roads because it's, at the end of the day, you look back after a day of paving and you're like, shit, man, there's a mile and a half of roadway that didn't exist yesterday. And it's smooth and it's awesome. And millions of people are going to use this product. Yeah. So that's a background on my, I guess, professional.
That's where you're at. Yeah. A couple of great takeaways from both your stories. And they're parallel to mine. My parents were blue collar workers. They were immigrants. They didn't have much education. They didn't speak English when they came to the country. So they're from Italy originally, just, in a town south of Rome. And in that small town of about 15,000, there's about, out of that town, 20 billionaires that came out of it. That are in manufacturing and construction, and they literally built segments of our country. And so my parents were hard workers, and I saw them, toil away at various jobs that nobody wanted to have. But at the dinner table at night, they would tell us, my brother and I, hey, this is what we did at work. And they never complained. They said, it's an opportunity, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to get experience. And that's similar to your stories too. And then once they got the experience, they were able to move on to other jobs. So we basically started with working poor class. And all my parents would say to us is go to school and get an education because it's so important. Because they couldn't articulate very well, they were taken advantage. So they'd work, say, 50 hours a week. They were paid 40. They never got overtime or double time like the other people. They were always paid less. But you know what? They never had a negative thing to say. They just said, I'm just grateful that this country welcomed us and it's going to give us opportunities more than war-torn Europe when it was rebuilding. So hence, just watching them progress in society was very encouraging. And they didn't, I wanted to go into construction because my father, one of the jobs he had until he had an injury was he worked in companies that built our roads, our subways, our sidewalks. And on the weekends, because he was site super, he always liked to go and see what was going on so he can plan the week ahead. We would go there and we'd fiddle around with the machines, and I could ask questions and, try out the machines. And it was so fascinating to see these big sewer pipes being installed or just about to be installed, and then the finished product. So I really wanted to do that. And then my dad's like, you know what, you see, on the days that there was no school, my dad would take me to work. There weren't any women working in the construction sites. He says, it's not a place for a woman. You need to go to school. You need to get an education, and you got to work as a professional. So I was geared that way. And in a way, I was kind of sad because, like James just said earlier, is the personal satisfaction you get when you actually see a road come to completion and people using that, and then you're making their lives easier because they're able to get to this place, to that place at a faster pace. And that's the thing that always lingered with me. Even though I went into the teaching profession, I did enjoy it for the time I was there because I took my responsibility seriously. I wanted to mold the next generation based on my experiences as a young person, that you got to get out there as early as you can. Because I had my first entrepreneurial experience when I was 5 years old. My brother's 7 years older than me. Money was tight, and my brother's like, well, mom and dad don't have any money to spare, so why don't we just start cutting lawns? And we did that. And $5, and we'd split it half each. And that's when we started saving. And then we did little things like lemonade stands. We do snow removal, to the point where we got it. And then when we were old enough to actually have a job, and that was about 14, we went to work at various places to get that experience. And every time I got a little bit of experience, I was able to creep up to the another notch on the social ladder. And my goal was to get up here, because honestly, guys, being poor and not being able to afford anything, like I didn't get a pair of Nikes until I was 25. So just didn't have the money, but you wanted it so badly. So for me, blue collar really struck a chord, because it gave my parents the opportunity to progress upwardly. And I'm really a proponent of it, because after I left the teaching career, my father-in-law, he was a master artisan in woodworking. He taught me the trade. And like, I was basically a dummy. I couldn't even read a tape measure. I didn't know the differences between the pieces of wood. I was taught his technique, which he brought from Italy, mortise and tenon, which is a technique that's copied worldwide. So to have that, and then being able to produce a product raw, and then, sitting down and watching Netflix and saying, hey, that's our product. So I'm watching Hemlock Grove or The Green Door, and I see our products there. Or I might see TV celebrities like Mike Holmes, Brian Baumner. They're clients that work with us, or top-notch designers that have international fame, Brian Gluckstein. So that's how I got personal satisfaction from it. And I thought, you know what, blue-collar people are not given enough praise for the work they do. And the other thing, and we're on board with it, is there's incredible shortages out there. And because of the shortages, a lot of opportunities. So I'm thinking this is what's led you to the creation of Dirty and Driven podcast, your media and training company for the construction industry. Is that correct?
Yeah, it really is. Workforce development is something I'm passionate about, and I'm involved in a lot of avenues of workforce development. The Dirty and Driven project was started because I was like, man, I want to build a brand. I want to have my own thing. I don't necessarily want to own my own construction company, but as much as I love construction, I love being in the company I'm in. I really just see the biggest need we have right now, funneling people in. And working with companies that are already established to bring people in and want people, gain, train, retain, like we say. And that's exactly why we started it, because like you're talking about, there's all these skilled craftsmen, like you're talking about your dad and stuff like that. And there's all these skilled craftsmen, but they're not passing it down, and they're aging out. They're getting out of the industry. They're retiring. There's a lot of people like that. And it's terrifying to think about the fact that in 10 years, we may not have enough people to actually perform the jobs that need to be done fast enough. And where does that start to hurt you? Well, if work's everywhere in your company, you're going to take the best jobs. And if you only have so many guys to perform so many jobs, who's that going to end up screwing? The individuals. It's going to screw us, right? Absolutely. Because if we need a plumber, and we say, hey, man, my toilet's backed up. I can't figure it out. That plumber's going to say, sorry, dude, I'm backed up for 6 months. And frankly, I don't like doing residential work because I've got so much big commercial work that's paying big money. I don't really want to screw with that.
Yeah, you're SOL there.
Yeah. And it's, literally you're shit out of luck if your toilet's not working right. And it's like, shit. And you see this and it's like, we flip our light switch on. And what do we do? Nothing. We don't think about it. It's just flip light switch on. Yep. Well, about 15 miles from here, there's a coal fire plant. Okay. Let's think about that right there. And there's windmills all around us. All right.
Yeah.
Let's start with the coal fire plant. Well, they're burning coal to produce electricity. There's dozens, hundreds of guys that work at that plant making sure we have electricity. Okay, that's one piece of the pie. Well, there's a train that brought that coal to the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to have somebody to drive the train. Well, shoot, where'd the train come from? Oh, it came from up north in like Wyoming or something like that. Okay. Well, somebody loaded that train, but they had to get the coal from somewhere. So there's a whole hundreds of coal miners and equipment and stuff like that to even get the coal out of the ground.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have blue collar workers, now all of a sudden we don't have guys mining coal. We don't have guys fixing the equipment to mine coal. We don't have a guy to drive the train to get the coal to the coal fire plant.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have guys manning the coal fire plant to fire things up. And then let's not even talk about all the underground utilities that are in place and overhead to make sure that we can flip our light switch on. It takes hundreds of people to be able to flip our light switch on. And it's terrifying to think that 40% of those people could be gone in the next 10 years.
Yeah. And it's critical. And just, I don't think our generation really understands the severe impact that's going to happen. The other day, I was talking to some new employees that we sponsored to come into the country from South America. And the one thing that they were grateful for was steady electricity. And I go, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, they're from Brazil. They said, well, we had a lot of power outages, so you didn't know when you'd have your power. So it could be on all day while you're working. You get home and you want to cook your meal or maybe just chillax or something. You had no power. So, and I go, well, why is that? And for that reason there, what you just said, we don't have enough skilled people because they've either, immigrated to other countries, Europe, North America, and they don't have anybody to teach the next generation. So they're just basically abandoning their countries to come to our countries. And, but we're experiencing the same situation.
Yes. And you can sit back and you can say why, because kids don't want to work. Well, that's bullshit. I'm sorry. That is absolute bullshit. I know a lot of kids that are my age that want to work and they are hard workers. And now we have to push out the opportunity in the blue collar trades. And that is why we started Dirty and Driven, is because we want to make the opportunity known that, hey, you can go and you can do this career if you're willing to work for it and you want it. And the sky's your limit, man. I mean, if you just want a job, if you just want 6-figure job and enough money to pay your bills and be with your family, and that's all you want to do, you don't want to go to college, you can do that. Okay. If you want to start your own company and build it into $1 billion company, you can do that.
Yeah. In
the trades. And that's what we want to market is, how do we get those things known? Because we're not competing with other construction companies, right? I mean, the construction industry as a whole has done a very bad job of marketing since like the 70s. And that's true. Yeah. Like today we have twice as big of a workforce. I just learned this the other day. We have twice as big of a workforce as we did in 1980, but less people in the trades. Because there's so many other opportunities. There's tech companies. You can be an Instagram influencer. You can make money, doing complete other things. Casey's about to quit his job because he's big on OnlyFans.
Sorry. Yeah, that revenue stream is starting to pick up.
Yeah, I know. And
sorry,
there's a lot.
I had to break up some seriousness.
Yeah, but you got a point. I think it's they've really marketed it poorly. And even the mining industry, I've had some guests come on the show, and they're saying, we got this bad image where, you go to work in a mine and all of a sudden you're in this deep, dark place and there's some sort of explosion and then there's a collapse of the mine and everybody dies or they get trapped. That's not necessarily the case. I'm pretty sure there's negative images of the pipeline industry that we talked about earlier, and same with manufacturing. we have to do a better job to market those possibilities. And so just from like an employer perspective, I come up to you guys and say, hey, listen, I'm having, 50% of my labor force are going to be retiring within the next 4 to 5 years. So how would you help me get those positions filled if I hired you as my consultant?
That is an awesome question. I appreciate you asking that, actually. Yeah. So we start with your current labor force, right? Mm. I think before anything, we have to start with you. Truly, I take back my current labor force. We start with you as the leader. Okay. It's a top-down approach, right?
Yes.
You have to outline where you want your business to go. Okay, you have to be comfortable with not even necessarily change and your beliefs and how you're doing things, but just a change in overall the world around you, and adapting to things, right? So we start off with saying, all right, what is your business? What do you want this to be? Because to attract young people, we need to teach them a mission. We need to show them your mission and your goals for this company and give them a purpose to achieving this common goal or mission, right?
Yeah.
So we sit down with you and we outline, all right, where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in a couple of years? And what are your main objectives? From there, we figure out, who are you? Who are you as a company? We don't want to come in and just, all of a sudden change everything. We're all about small changes over time. And we want your business to be a reflection of exactly what you want your business to be. And so we sit down and we say, all right, what are your core values? And we do a long process of defining and outlining your core values and your mission statement and the purpose of your company. Okay, that's where it starts. Yeah. And it starts with the top leader. What's a realistic thing? And it's not what's a political core values of integrity, honesty, on time, under budget, safety. It's like, no, it's truly what you believe in. And I just want to throw this out there on core values. Integrity should not necessarily be one of your core values. Okay. Integrity is a reflection of whether or not you are upholding the standard of your company through your core values. And those core values are the standard of your company. And that is what you make your decisions on. We set those first and foremost because they are important. Because from there, we got to make sure you've got the right people in your company and the wrong people out of your company. Okay. Right. So if you have cancers in your company, we got to get them out. We got to keep all your people happy, your good people happy. Yes. And I know that you look at it and you say, James, I'm already shorthanded, man. I could use 5 more people. We're just getting hands. We just need pairs of hands on the crew. Well, okay, let's get these cancers out because your good people are going to leave if you don't kick the bad people out.
So true.
Yeah. So you sell this mission, right? And you just say, this is our goal, this is our mission, and this is what we believe in. And you tell that to all of your current people. And you say, if you want to buy into this, awesome. If you don't, thank you for working here as long as you did. Yeah. But this will be the standard. And you have to set a standard and hold it. The other day, a business leader told me, we're going to have to lower our standards just to hire people. And I say that's bullshit. In fact, you need to raise your standards. Yes. Because people now, kids these days, and I'm talking about people my age, I'm 25, okay? People from that age, 18 to 25 and older, I mean, people want a purpose. They want to work somewhere where they show up and they feel valued. So we have to learn how to keep your current people, your good people on board and happy. I used to say gain, train, retain, but really it starts with retain. You have to retain the people you have, because if you gain new people and your current people are like, dude, doors open, get out while you can. You don't want to get trapped here. You can't have that. Yes. So you want to make sure your current people are happy. And then from there, it's how do we bring in new applicants, right? We need new people. We need youth. And the youth now is a different animal than it has been in the past. A lot of them have never had a job before. They might be 18 to 21 years old, never worked a day in their life.
And that's the hard part.
Yes. And the issue is not that they don't want to work. It's they don't know how. And some of them have never had consequences for anything in their life, and some of them have never had to uphold a standard. But I think if you sit down, you have to change your hiring process. I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to figure out how to funnel in your applications, right? And that's more of the marketing side of things. And we work with some awesome marketing agencies to bring people in, as far as social media, good website, good web presence, all that. I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of marketing, but you basically have to do this marketing stuff, and you have to funnel them in, right? That's the gain. And then you have to change your interview process up. And this is very important, is to interview in a way that asks, okay, directly and indirectly, what are your goals? What do you want? Where do you want to be? And also you have to ask them questions that they have to answer in regards to your core values and your mission, and see if they're even going to be willing to buy into that, or if they're just showing up because they just need a job and they don't really give a shit. And okay, you have to see, and you have to feel them out that way. And you want to be sure and hire the right people. And then from there, you want to train people. Once you get them hired on, you might have a kid who's never worked a day in his life and he doesn't know how to work, but you have to be very blunt and very real and say, here's the standards. We're going to work with you. We want to get you through this. Let's keep going. I see potential in you, but you want to set a plan for these people. And that's really where my passion lies, is building that pipeline. Casey talked about a pipeline earlier. You're bringing in the crude oil, right?
Yes.
That's a person off the streets. And personally, I would rather see somebody who has no experience, somebody who hasn't learned bad habits, somebody who hasn't worked somewhere else, somebody who's not a know-it-all, just somebody who's just raw.
We prefer them that way too.
Yeah.
And willing to learn. That's
willing to learn.
Yeah, that motivation is very key. Or they're not going to cut it anywhere, right? So just to touch on some of your points, okay? So our company is 48 years old, and it's moving on to the third generation. We have 4 adult children they've done the college route, and they got their business degrees and finance. And the first thing they said to me is, yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to go into school and stuff like that, but we would have actually liked it better if we just came straight to work right out of high school, because we learned more in the years that we've worked with you and Dad than in the classroom, because the people that are teaching the young generation, not all of them have hands-on experience like you and me. So they're just teaching from a textbook, and they're kind of like out of sync with what's going on. But going into a company and being able to retain, like, we pride ourselves with having people that start very young, and they might be right out of high school or their early 20s, and they retire with us. Like, we had a flood of people retiring just before the pandemic in 2019, and this was their first and only job that they had in the country. And we saw them, some of them were refugees that came and they needed an opportunity. And all the core points that you brought up, they had motivation, willingness to learn. We also had a language barrier because they didn't speak English. But thank goodness for technology, when you can go on your phone and use Google Translate. A lot easier, but that was just recently. But in the early years, we didn't have that. So we had to bring in someone that spoke English, and that would be the translator.
The Hefe.
Yes.
We always had the Hefes whenever I was roofing houses and stuff. We'd have 7 or 8 Hispanics helping us roof, but that one Hefe, he'd be the intermediary between the Inglés and the Espanol.
Absolutely.
And it worked out perfect.
For sure.
And then, you know what? Then next thing, I started learning broken Spanish. I took Spanish for 2 years in high school, but I learned Spanish better on the job. A lot of it might be adult Spanish, but I learned a lot of it.
That's the best kind.
On the job.
Yeah.
I learned Spanish so well in the years that I was roofing that now when I go to Mexico, to Cancun, or wherever to vacation, my broken Espanol does good with with the broken English. You know what I mean? We could have great conversations and get along just great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No. So true.
Well,
So
it's
true.
great. You said from Italy, right? So,
Yeah.
and if you learn enough Spanish, you can actually speak broken Italian.
Yeah, you can.
They're very similar. My buddy,
Really?
well, so Nick, my original co-host, one of my best friends, we went to Italy, and
What part you go
I
to?
just speak, I speak. Well, we went to Rome.
Rome. Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
I'd love to see some other spots of Italy, but yeah, we went to Rome, and we got in a trilingual argument one time with this restaurant owner because he didn't speak any English, but he shorted us like 10 euros and change. It was like, dude, you didn't give us enough change. And he's
Mhm.
sitting here yelling at us in Italian, and my buddy's yelling at him in Spanish, and I'm just over here speaking English, like,
Yeah.
what, you know, just that. So he's speaking broken Italian, this guy's speaking broken English, and it's just
Yeah, that translate would have fried itself trying to translate all y'all. It just
Yeah,
started,
it would have exploded.
yeah.
But yeah, and then it's what you said. A company culture is so important, and we value like teamwork and family, and we bring in our staff 4 times a year, and we have one-to-one interviews, and we try to understand where they're at to see if they're going to be one of our long-term employees. If not, we kind of help them on their way. And going back to the earlier years with my father-in-law, when he started, we had mostly immigrants, and they were Italian. They had large families. They were renting a place. They needed a vehicle, and my father-in-law went above and beyond the call of duty, where if they were buying a home, he would co-sign the loan for them, and he ensured that the payments got made, and it was a big celebration when they actually paid the house down and they had home ownership, the dream, right? He also helped purchase vehicles for them to make sure that they had the transportation, because when my father-in-law built the plant, it was north of the city. There wasn't any transit. You needed a vehicle. So he made sure that his employees had a means of transportation, which these are things that employers need to do. And we need to also get that word out to young people that employers are willing to work with you. It's just you need to articulate and then let them know, hey, man, I don't have enough money to pay my rent. Can you help me out? And one thing that we're finding too is the schools are not teaching them anything about finances, anything about savings.
I'm very passionate about teaching finances to blue collar people.
And that's so critical, because you can't get anywhere in life, whether if you just want to be a blue collar worker, and you can make 6 or 7 figures, but if you're spending more than you're earning, you got to put into the equation that you might fall ill, you might get hurt, and that income just evaporates. Then what are you going to do? It's so important to teach them savings, and it could be just as little as, say, $50 you put away every pay period. And then you have that compound effect where it just keeps growing and growing. And then one of the things my father-in-law was big about was, once you saved your money, buy an investment property. And the guys that retired in 2019, they had bought, like one of them who was there the longest, bought a couple of apartment complexes where they're both 12 apartments each, so 24 apartments, and he's fine. He doesn't have to worry about his pension because he made his pension. And so these are the possibilities that really exist out there for a blue collars and also entrepreneurship. So I'm glad you brought that up, and you've got a plan, and that's something that I think is really critical, that needs to be out there for people, to reach out to people like you, to people like me, and that way we can plan for the next generation. Because right now I just don't see society helping the youth with all these challenges, and some of them are just getting overwhelmed, saying, like, what's the point of working? I'm never going to have a home. I'm never going to be able to afford a nice car. But that's not true. Those are myths, And we need to bring that out, that it's possible. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're at.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a lot of things that companies can do that is low cost to them or no cost. And invest in the youth is huge, because everybody who says kids don't want to work nowadays
Not true.
is my parents' age.
Yeah.
Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that they did not raise their kids properly.
Yes.
The same people that are saying kids don't want to work are the reason kids don't want to work, right? Because they did not want their kids to suffer and struggle like they did.
Exactly. That's why my parents forced me to go to university and get a teaching degree. And just going over with my 4 kids, as soon as they turned 14, you're not coming to work at our shop. You're going to go get a job. Okay. My oldest son worked at a donut chain, and he would cry like a little bitch when he came home at night. Oh, my feet hurt. You can't believe what they made me do. They made me scrub the gum underneath the tables. Like, what asshole would put a gum under the table? I go, someone who doesn't have a job and doesn't understand anything. Right? He used to clean windows. He used to empty out the garbages. He did really wretched jobs. But you know what? He appreciated that experience. My other kids worked at a supermarket, and they had to stock shelves. My daughter, she worked at a bakery, and all you hear was people bitch and complain and say, oh, the bread's not fresh. I want a refund. Well, the bread's only 25 cents. So you think you can get another one, right? Nope. You had to have client satisfaction. So it taught him a lot of things. But the biggest thing that I had to go through is my neighbors actually shamed me. And they shamed me like, well, you and your husband, you guys are pretty affluent. So why the hell are you sending your kids to work, And I said, it's for life experience. No, that's wrong. And you shouldn't do that. And they like bitched me out constantly. Fast forward to about 20 years. My kids, they finished school. They work full time. They bought their own place. So they're out of my house. And where are their kids? Living at home. They don't even have a job. They're in their mid-20s to early 30s, and they're at home sucking the life out of their parents. And then I see their parents as I'm going to work. I wave at them, and they got this really miserable look because, you know what? My kids are making it, and their kids, they're not going anywhere. And you're right. It's the parenting. And that's one point I want to bring up. One thing I'm finding with young girls that I'm working with is the parental pressure that, you know what, you're stupid if you don't go to college or university and don't get a degree. Only people that are dumb are the ones that actually go to the blue collar trades and all that stuff. And then they get into their electric car like a Tesla. Well, who the hell do you think put together that? Oh, some blue collar dummy.
Yeah.
Right. And I really take offense to that. And what do you say about that?
Well, I think a lot of that, the indoctrination with the education system still pushing. I think there's starting to be more. I'm hedging here, James.
Hedging. Yeah. We like
hedging. We'll be definite, but then we'll hedge just in case if we go awry. But
just in case there's a little bit of odd, and people are like, "What?" And it's like, "Well, I didn't say absolute," but we paint with a broad brush, so you got to throw some hedge words in.
Yeah, I think there's starting to be a little bit more of not so much the blue collar push in schools, high schools, but technical, vo-techy, that type of stuff. At least those options are starting to be more, even like kind of what we're doing and what you're doing. I mean, at least if someone hopefully tunes in, maybe they'll know there's different options than having to go to college. But it's push, push, push. And my conspiratorial mind, I always say big this, big pharma, big that. But I think big education probably has something to do with the secondary schools pushing, you got to go to college or you're going to, I'm not saying you're going to be a piece of crap, but I think there's a lot of incentive to push kids that way instead of, I took a ton of notes while James was talking. And I've taken notes, got a bunch of notes, but I'm going to kind of.
All that says is I'm pretending to take notes.
Yeah, that was one of mine I wrote here. One time I wrote that. Sorry. I'm pretending to write notes. I wrote that one time on there just to make it look like I was doing something. but with the blue collar trades, this is one thing that I'm kind of going off kilter here. You have your supply and demand. I know it's a basic supply and demand.
Yeah.
But if there's starting to be a void in blue collar work, but the work is there, you know what? So if there's a void, so if we're going down like this,
yeah,
there's less workers, but there's work. So let's say the pay is here, you're going down. That pay is going to start increasing because they're going to have to maybe start paying people more to hopefully bring them there. And what a great opportunity to get in is when the pay is going up, you know, and there's less workers there.
Yes.
I mean, it sucks.
We're there now.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it sucks that it comes down to money.
Yes.
But money sure helps pay the bills too. And it'll be more attractive if in those jobs nowadays, I know you've probably seen them out there the way where they say, instead of going to college, you could get a plumbing degree and HVAC degree, you know, license, this and that. And you can start out at $25, $30, $35, $40 an hour after, 5 years. Dude, that pay is equivalent to a lot of these jobs compared to when you get out of college being 6 figures in debt. Then hopefully you get to that pay. You can literally have pretty much zero debt straight out of high school, get into a blue collar job and start kicking ass.
Precisely. And go on, James.
I was going to say, and back to your original question of like, people say these big, dumb blue collar people, dumb on whose standard? You know what I mean? Like, no, they did not go to school to become a rocket scientist. I look at my wife and I. My wife is very intellectually intelligent. She's an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
She was brilliant. She was straight A's, honor roll, everything. All through high school. I think she got like 1 B in college and she was like torn up about it. I mean, in one of the hardest degrees at Oklahoma State University, mind-blowingly smart woman. And, for a while it was like, her parents are German and stuff. So they're all about school and education and stuff like that, and they, and she's German too. But anyways, sorry. Her and I are different in that regard, that like she would always get mad at me for like not putting my all into school and like, why are you getting C's and stuff like that? And I was like, because I don't give a fuck about this stuff. Like blue collar people are smart. And I would
hands down they are.
I've met people with PhDs that are the dumbest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. I mean, they are probably very intelligent in whatever field they study, but all that a PhD, all that a master's degree tells me is that you can follow directions and you can do the assignments.
Right.
That doesn't tell me your skills. That doesn't tell me what can you do. If the world ends today and I need a group of 10 people to move forward, are you going to be one of them?
Yeah.
That's what I care about. That's what's smart to me. Blue collar people are grossly underrated in their intelligence. You go out that's why we talk the way we talk on our podcast, is because that's how it is. People look at me and I Casey and I both have a lot of respect for, from a lot of people, and people know that we are not idiots, but you listen to our podcast and it's like, we're telling dirty jokes and we're cussing and we're doing all that stuff because that's the way that we are. And we have fun doing that, but that doesn't mean that we're idiots. And you take a guy that's a skilled electrician or skilled plumber or a guy that can run a motor grader. Golly, you get a guy that can run a motor grader. That's a hard job to learn, man. I know. It's a long time to master, and they are.
It is. And I'm glad you brought that point out, because that's why I feel so passionate about it. There's people that have mistreated my husband and I simply because we work with our hands. Mm-hmm. And there's one instance where my husband had stopped for a coffee, met up with some friends just on his way back, just before he got home. And there was a guy who he hadn't seen for a while. And my husband's name is James as well. Hey, James.
Holla.
You're still doing that door thing, you got making doors. And he kind of said it in a derogatory way. And he goes, yeah. So how's it going for you? And he says, it's going good. I can't complain. I'm very lucky at what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. And then there was another fellow that joined the conversation. His name was Joseph, and he owns a company that does powder coating. And so this guy, too, who has an office job, thought he was king of the hill. He said, hey, Joseph, what about you? Everything fine? Yeah, everything's fine. And so he just went in, yeah, I don't know how you guys can do that type of job. It would have been better if you guys went to school and you ended up working in a nice job like me. I got a nice suit. You guys are in your blue jeans and your work shirt. And he goes, well, you know what? Everybody has their preferences, and we chose ours, and we're pretty happy. So as they were leaving, this guy got into his Toyota Corolla, and Joseph got into his Ferrari, and my husband got into his Bentley.
Hell yeah.
So then they honked at him and say, have a nice day. So that just proves that blue collar people aren't stupid. They are smart in what they do. And I'm bringing back the point from the earlier conversation is our society wouldn't be functioning like it is now without them. Granted, we do need a partnership with people that have degrees, like an architect, and they got to make sure that everything's structurally sound. But if you don't have, people to pour concrete, metal framers, asphalt, like you said, you're not going to have a structure, right? So it's a combination of both, and that respect has to be brought up for blue collar people. That's the one beef that I have, and that's why I'm bringing it up over and over again.
That no respect deal. On James and I's podcast, especially our Tuesday episodes, when we're just yapping back and forth, I think we hit some good points and good value on a lot of things we talk about. But a lot of things we talk about too is just kind of life lessons on how to deal with certain situations.
Of course,
and a lot of that will tie into to work, also the blue collar work. But if people, and I know you've heard it because you just gave a story on it, if people are talking smack, like talking down on blue collar work or your profession, like I've talked with James, and like I try to teach, I've got grandkids, like I even tell my little grandson, like I tell him, if kids are being mean to you at school or whatever, and this ties in also to people who are saying blue collar's dumb, consider the source, consider who's saying that, consider who's making fun of you at school, who's saying that, you're dumb or you talk too much or whatever. Look at that kid. I mean, that kid's not even playing with anybody. He's being mean to everybody. Consider the source. That's the type of person you don't want to be around. The same with the people who might look down upon you because you're not wearing a suit and a tie. Consider that. I mean, yeah, you might respect them to a point, but really, do you super duper? If it was somebody that James and I respected talking crap to us that we looked up to, then maybe we need to do a little self-reflection, saying, dang, maybe there is something going on in my life that I need to look into. But like for the blue collar derogatory talking down on, a lot of times those people that talk smack on that, they don't know crap, at least in my opinion. And another deal too is I'd rather show up in a t-shirt and blue jeans to work than have to put on a stuffy suit and tie and tight ass slacks that don't fit, that I have to pull out of my ass, every time I sit down.
Hot waters.
Yeah, dude. I'm saying my little penny loafer. I mean,
for sure.
I'd rather be this guy making change than the other person. Now, I say that. Now, who knows if here in the next 3 to 5 years, my career just skyrockets like this, I might be that. I might, start wearing that suit and tie. You know what? This suit and tie ain't bad because I'm making, quite a few figures.
I want to say too, I dealt with the same thing you did, Rosemary. I was shamed a lot in high school because I came from a family with money, right? But the thing is, whenever I was little, my family didn't have money. Yes, my dad was a lawyer, but I don't think everybody thinks that every lawyer is just richer than hell. No, there's a lot of broke ass lawyers out there, especially on the public side, things like that.
Yes.
But my dad, whenever I was 10 years old, he went 18 months without a paycheck, and he was the only income provider at the time. My mom was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids, and he went out to start his own law firm. Now they saved and budgeted and prepared for that, but he went 18 months without a paycheck. And, I watched him hustle like that, and people don't know that part of our story. They just see where my family's at now. They see a prominent name in our town. And so whenever I was in high school, everybody, cause my dad for the early 2000s was a master marketer. Now he's lagging a little behind now, but he's all about, the cheesy lawyer, the billboards but that's
what it was back then, right?
Yeah, well, it's still you enter town. You can't enter town without seeing my dad's face. But he's also good because he put magnets in the phone book. Now, nobody reads the phone book, but they take the magnet out, slap it on their fridge, and throw the phone book away because everybody always needs more magnets. So,
yeah, you do. Especially if
so
you got pictures of grandchildren, right?
Right. Yeah. So everybody knows my family's last name in this town solely because my dad's probably on their fridge in their house. But I had a football coach tell me before, whenever I was like 15, I was late for practice or had to leave or something. I was like, man, I got to work, and he's like, man, why do you work so many hours?
Right.
I was like, man, I said, I got to get in that hole, man. Got to make some money. He's like, but you come from a family where you don't need to be in the hole. He said, you don't need to be digging. You don't need to be out. He's like, that's why your parents make money. I said, my parents made money for my parents. They did it because they wanted to. I said, they want to make sure that I'm prepared to do that too. And I said, I want to be in the hole, man. And that's why I went with the blue collar route whenever they said, you got to buy your first car. Because I said, where can I make the most money possible to buy the nicest vehicle possible? I didn't want to be cruising in a Pinto. I wanted to be driving something nice. And you go that route because there's opportunity. And the sky is your limit in the blue collar world. And the richest people I know are blue collar, started blue collar or own a blue collar company. I was at an event last week. It was almost 700 people were there. And it was the Association of General Contractors. The richest people in the state of Oklahoma were sitting in that room.
Nice.
And it wasn't lawyers and doctors and stuff. It was construction owners.
Yes.
People that are worth, some of them, billions. And they're just chilling in there. And none of them, you didn't see any Armani suits. You didn't see anything crazy like that. Some guys had suits on. Half of them, even some of the rich guys, they had suits on that looked like they bought it at Goodwill and it didn't fit them, It's just like, and I'm with Casey. I don't want to wear a suit to work. I want to wear jeans and a shirt. I don't even want to wear jeans half the time. I want to wear shorts, but that's how I want to be. And I like that. And I like walking in a room and some guy in a suit that makes half as much money as me looking down on me. And it's like, buddy, you don't have any idea.
Yeah. That's interesting. It just brought me back to a fundraiser we were at a few weeks ago. And yes, these were the movers and shakers of town. And what did we wear? We wore a shirt and blue jeans, and some people wore cowboy boots. We didn't have the suits, like you're saying. And when you go to a lot of fundraisers, you see, and we call them the posers, where they act like they own the room. And the ones that really, really are the most powerful wealth-wise, they're so quiet. Mm-hmm. And there's one thing that I was taught many years ago by someone that I met years, and she said, money shouts, but wealth whispers. Mm-hmm. So when you have somebody, like you said, in the Armani suits and the rented Lamborghinis, you know what? That's just, okay, they made a pile of money, great. But the real wealthy people, they're so quiet. And that's one thing people don't understand. And they when they do give back, because they're so blessed with things, they do it quietly. Mm-hmm. They'll just write a check.
Yeah, you don't need a check with the name on it.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's incredible where somebody might make a $100 donation. Well, they'll have to tell 100 people that they made that $100 donation. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, guys, I just wanted to look forward into the future. So what legacy do you guys aim to leave behind through your dirty and driven missions?
I want people to say, hey, maybe the legacy is I don't care about recognition or anything like that, right? I don't want people to say anything about us or anything. I just want people to find value in the trades. I want people to say, hey, man, I never knew these opportunities existed. And frankly, we say bring people to the blue collar world and teach them how to kick ass. And I've never really elaborated or broke that down too much. I don't know that it needs much elaboration, but I'm going to elaborate on it anyways. We don't want the blue collar people looked down on. We want blue collar people because, all right, let's be honest. A lot of the blue collar people coming into the world are not from your affluent families. It's not from your people. A lot of them is the bottom of the fucking barrel. Yeah. It's the people who have been to prison. It's the people whose parents abandoned them. It's the people who dropped out of school. Mm-hmm. Okay. It is people who have lived in generational poverty for a long time is a large percentage of it. It's people who never had a dad or a mom or either, or they've been abused by their parents. It's people who have not been taught that, hey, here's how to buy a house, or hey, here's how to get insurance, or hey, here's how you need to be around for your kid. It's people who have not been taught these basic fundamentals of life that at one point were a commonality and now they are not. It's people who don't know better. And it's ultimately to teach these people to be upstanding, productive citizens of society. That is the legacy I see us leaving, and that's the legacy I want to leave. And sure, I would love to work with blue collar people individually, but most of those types of people are stubborn and they've had to figure everything out along the way now. And they can't either A, afford to do that, pay us, or B, they can't, they're too proud to say, oh, this guy, I don't want him teaching me nothing. Now, that's why we do the podcast is to teach to the individuals and to speak to them. Now, I like working with businesses because you have a relationship with your people. If like you and I work together, you've got a relationship with your people. I help guide you along and I speak to them sometimes, be a different voice of reason, but ultimately we're just slowly working on it. And you're going to be with these people and hopefully these people will be with you for years to come. And it's taken years for them to get to the state that they are, and it's going to take years to get them into a new mindset. And so our goal is to work with these businesses to invest in their people, because that will build loyalty, that will build trust, and that will build people who want to just work their asses off for you. And that is what we're trying to do, is make this an industry that is sustainable and fulfilling to everybody who comes and works in it.
I love that. So if I'm just a young person listening, or I might be even a person that's in between jobs and I'm struggling, what piece of advice or message would you like to share with them?
I can take over on this.
Take over.
In our podcast, in our everyday talk, I see opportunity. I can look across not across the room, but I can literally look out in public and see opportunity there with anything. I'm going to make this about me, but then I'm going to turn it in. I'm going to answer your question.
Yep. Go ahead.
There's so much opportunity out there. Fortunately, not only with my pipeline job, but I have a ton of free time to where I do all these side gigs, my maintenance gigs, my hustles, to where I'll challenge myself at times. I have plenty of work, but I will literally challenge myself if I go into an Atwoods or a Home Depot or a Lowe's or somewhere. I'll go, you know what? I need to dust the old sales pitch off, and I'll walk up to a manager. But I walk up with confidence because I've gotten the reps in the past. I've learned from my mistakes. I used to sell Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door. So I learned a lot about the door knock and how to read people and how to answer. But I will go up and whether it's a grocery store or let's say a gas station, I'll walk up to a gas station. I'll say, hey, is y'all's a store manager here? Yeah, let me go get him or her. She's in the back. They'll come. Yeah, I can help you. And I'll be like, hey, I noticed your light fixture on the outside on the overhang, it's hanging down. I mean, I don't want to point out any flaws, but do you have anybody that takes care of stuff like that for you? Well, we do, but he hasn't showed up in a couple weeks, and he's kind of tough to get a hold of. Why? And so here's my end. That's my opportunity. Yeah. And I'll say, well, if he doesn't show up, I can do that. So you can? I go, yeah, and. Well, how soon could you get if people are in the buying mode? If they say how soon, I got stuff in my truck right now. I can get that thing knocked out for you right now. Sure enough, that's my little in, and I've done this recently. So then when I do that, they'll say, hey, while you're here, can you come back to our fence behind the property? I want to show you something. And they'll show me a hinge that's off or a latch that isn't working, or maybe some, pickets that are coming off the fence. Do you know anything? Do you know any? I go, yeah, dude, I do that stuff all day long.
Yeah, one thing leads to another.
Opportunity. Yeah. And it's everywhere. And like I said, I'll dust off my little, I'll do it. Not that I need more work, but I'll do it just to kind of keep me sharp. And actually, I don't know where I'm going with this, but all I'm letting you know is there's opportunity for everybody out there. Like I touched on and James touched on when I kind of first started off with paper routes, by the way. That was my first entry back when we delivered papers door to door. I would deliver papers starting about third grade. My brother was in sixth or seventh. I would get out of school, deliver. We almost had 100 people on our paper route. I would deliver the papers. And then right after that, I would go to football practice. So it would be run the whole route, do the papers, and do football practice. I was day in, day out. And we would do 6 days a week. We wouldn't deliver on Saturday, but we would deliver on Sunday. But the opportunity part with my dad saying, hey, son, why don't you go next door and see if that roofer needs help? Dude, I just went out there. And if this is anybody going into an opportunity situation, let them know, hey, I don't know anything. If I need to start off on the mop bucket, scrubbing floors or whatever, I just need a job. I want to start out ground level, and hopefully if I work out, then I can move up. Go in with that mindset, the same as with James and his landscaping deal. James just went, hey, do y'all need some help? I would recommend to anybody, if they're looking for work and they're in between jobs, to literally go in with confidence, whether it's in a gas station, look someone in the eye. This sucks that you have to say it nowadays, but look them in the eye, stick your hand out with confidence saying, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm looking for work. I don't care if it's anything, picking up trash. I need work. And drive down the road. And if there's a construction site going on, someone's building, framing a house, doing a footing, whatever it is, walk up to them. Hopefully, you walk around, hopefully it's a clean site and you don't trip over anything. Walk around, find them and let them know, I'd be willing to pick up the falls off of, these cuts of wood or anything. I just need some work. And I guarantee you 70 or 80% of the time, if not more, any of those people could get work because it's out there. And a lot of those people aren't used to people walking up like that, standing with confidence, looking them in the eyes.
So true.
What sucks is you're setting yourself apart from what should be a normal interaction between people because you're doing the old school, look them in the eye, stick the hand out. You're already selling yourself.
Yeah.
Dude, this person's going to work out great. So that's my pitch.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. A story a few weeks ago. Anybody that can approach a place of employment, I say they have balls of steel. We had a fellow that came, spoke broken English, and he basically said, I need a job. I can't feed my family. Okay, what can you do? And he said anything. So you know what? He just started with sweeping the floor. Couple of days into it, he got together with a few guys and he asked them, can you teach me how to work this machine? So he started working on a planer. And then a couple of days later, he learned how to work on a shaper. So he's a quick learn and very appreciative that he came to say he needed a job. Now we have to talk through Google Translate, but the point is what you said, very valid. And it's embarrassing to say that we have to go out and look someone in the eye and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. Nice to meet you. I'm looking for a job. What do you got for me? I can guarantee you that no one could say no.
And I want to say too, I've got a few things, and I'm going to say a couple things just from my perspective as somebody in an employment position and as somebody who has been on, worked on just the blue collar side things. And I want to speak to just in broad terms, the opportunity for what you're asking. And then I also just want to tie it into, I know this is the only women entrepreneurs podcast. I also just want to tie it into women in the industry because I'm a big proponent of that. And I'll get to that here in a second. My first thing is, and I'm speaking to just that person wanting to get into the industry. I'm also speaking to the parents here. Just get a job. As early as you can, as young of an age as you can, get a job or make your kids get a job as soon as they can. When they're 16, don't say, well, they just got school and it's so stressful and I don't want them getting a job while they're 16. No, dude, make them get a fucking job. Whether it's a part-time job, 20 hours a week in the summer times, they can do that. They don't need to be sleeping until 10 a.m. every day and go into the pool they can do it all, man. I had a great social life whenever I was in high school and I worked 60-hour weeks at least. That's where I was at. And I hated rain weeks. I hated sitting around. Make your kids get a job. Or like I said, if you're a younger person listening to this, just get a job. I know you don't want to, but just even if you don't need the money, even if your parents are bankrolling everything, learn the fundamentals of working. Doesn't matter where. fast food, retail, construction, anything. Just get a job and don't be too good for anything because you're not good enough. You're not too good. You're 16. All right. Or this is your first job, or you haven't had a job in a while. You're not too good for anything. You just need to get a freaking job. Just learn how to work, whether you like it or not. There's jobs everywhere.
So true.
Everybody's hiring. And it doesn't matter if you're doing bitch work, just do it. Okay. So to get that job, if you want to work for a construction company, just in general, like if you wanted to say you're coming to apply for me. Now, we don't hire anybody under 18, but if you're an 18-year-old, you've never had a job before, that doesn't really bother me. I look at your past work experience. If you have some experience in construction, I love that. It does make a big difference in our decision. We prefer people who at least have a general awareness of what hazards are on a construction site, because you only learn common sense from being around this stuff. And so people come out and you go, well, common sense ain't so common anymore. Well, it's because they've never been around this type of work at all.
No exposure.
Yes. And you can learn some of this from working at a gas station or retail or something, but construction has its own set of hazards and stuff. But you walk in, this is what I did. And I mentioned it earlier, but like I would call the owner of these companies. And these are, big shots. And I would say, can I sit down with you and learn about what you do? And I might want to come work for you. And all of them are more than willing to just say, yeah. Or if they can't, then they say, well, I'm not available, but, talk to this guy. And they will set you up with somebody. And especially if you're young and you're hungry and you say, man, I'm just willing to learn. And if you don't even know where to start, just Google it and just start calling owners and just say, hey, man, I would love to come work for you. I'm a young person. Or I'm in a different career path right now. I'm interested in construction. Can I just come and talk to you and pick your brain and ask you just a few questions and see if this is right for me? And I bet most of them will say, yeah, I want somebody who's willing to do that. And when you show up and maybe you just throw in an application, whatever, I just need a job. I'm just going to throw in an application. Maybe I'll get an interview.
Yeah.
Show up and look presentable. Okay. Yeah, it's a blue collar company. Yes, you can show up and you can wear your hoodie, your dirty hoodie and your jeans. And I don't even necessarily care if somebody shows up in a dirty hoodie and jeans. If they've been working, if they say, hey man, I just came from work, okay, I get that. But if you show up and like a couple weeks ago, I had a kid show up in shorts and a do-rag.
Oh. And
he handed me a limp dead fish of a handshake. Oh. And he couldn't look me in the eyes. And it's like, he didn't get hired. It's
absolutely not.
It's like, when you show up, just look presentable. I mean, maybe have a clean hoodie in your truck or a clean t-shirt or something. Now, sometimes I call them and I say, hey, do you want to come in for an interview? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, when do you want to come in? They're like, I'm coming today. But I'm coming straight from work. They didn't even know about the interview, so they couldn't throw on a clean hoodie or clean shirt or something. Fair enough. I get that. Yeah, fair. Yeah. Again, I don't care. That doesn't bother me. But if you show up and you look presentable, like one time I had a kid show up and he's wearing a Trump 2020 fuck the liberals shirt. It's like, dude, I don't care your political preferences, but don't wear that shit to an interview. Don't show up in a cutoff shirt either, even if you just came from work. I mean, just show up looking presentable. Okay. It's not that hard. And for some reason that's lost. Shake somebody's hand with firmness.
Yes.
Man or woman. If you're going in, you're interviewing with a woman, stick your hand out just as you would a dude. Okay. Show them the same respect and shake it firmly. Don't death grip them, look them in the eye. And if you have a bad handshake, you can even break the ice a little bit and be like, hey, that was a bad handshake. Let's do that again. Sometimes you miss and you grab the fingers or something, just basic stuff like that goes a long ways. I notice if somebody gives me a firm handshake because even adults that are twice my age will come in, even if I'm not interviewing customers, anything. It's just, they come in, they hand you a dead fish of a handshake. And I can tell a lot about a guy and the way he does business by his handshakes.
Yeah.
Truly. I can. For sure. And people will remember you if you give a good handshake and make eye contact. So that's kind of my biggest things on that. And then just show up and be willing to learn, especially if you're new to the industry or even if you've worked in construction, but you're new to whatever the specific trade is, whether it's, maybe you've worked in building construction, or you've worked as a carpenter or framer or something, and now you're going to the concrete or asphalt business, just start over. Just take that as I'm starting over and I'm willing to learn. And I want to learn. I want to learn as much as I can. And this is something I tell every new hire getting into the industry. Shut up and ask a lot of questions. If somebody tells you how to do something or tells you what to do, don't argue. Don't argue. People want to argue all the time. Hey, I need you to shovel that. Whoa. It's just, don't argue. Just shut your mouth, do the work, and ask questions. Ask people questions. They want to answer your questions. They don't know it, but people want to answer your questions. They want to pour into you. They want to feel smart. They want to talk about this stuff because most of them are masters of what they do. So ask the questions. And people will say, this kid asks a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes me feel better than when either my kids or grandkids or even people at work, whether it's a new hire or someone coming in from the field that's not familiar with what I do, when everybody that I just listed asks questions to me, dude, that means they're curious. That means they want to know. And that makes me feel good because, oh, shoot, okay, so here's what we do. And then when I start explaining stuff, a lot of times it helps me polish up and remember what the heck I'm doing. Sometimes I get a little lapsed in the way I articulate things, and it's a little refresher. And there's nothing better than people who are just curious, willing to learn.
Yes. Yeah. And start that at whatever job you're at. I know before you started, you talked about Andy Frisella, and one analogy he uses that I really like is the guy at McDonald's. He's like, wherever you're at, just be the best you can be. Maybe you can't find a job in the trades at 16, or maybe you don't even know it's an option. You're working at Dollar General or something. Yes. Be the best Dollar General cashier or whatever there is. It doesn't matter if you're making minimum wage or $10 an hour or something, just trash salaries. Learn the habits and make good habits, and you will upgrade and learn and get better. I have a buddy who works in the restaurant business, and he dropped out of college. He was working at Pizza Hut for years, and he keeps growing and growing because he goes and he works in these restaurants, and he becomes the top guy within a couple months. All right. Because he just does the nitty gritty and he works, and he knows that whenever he was working at Pizza Hut, he was making like $12 an hour or something, just making enough to pay rent and buy weed essentially. And then
those were his essentials, right?
They were at that time, right? Now he's, a lot different, but he goes wherever and he builds his way up, and then he goes to a nicer place, because he's the guy who masters the small shit. And like, he just moved to Denver, and I went down there with him, and he goes, I'm going to try and find a spot at a nice restaurant, cause he wants to be a chef. But he goes, if I have to, I'll get a job at fucking Denny's and just work in the kitchen for a little while until I find a better job. But he goes, if I go work at Denny's, I'm going to be working my ass off just to make my skills sharper. And it's like, hell yeah, dude, that's what you have to do. You can't be too good for anything. If you applied and you got that job and that's where you're working, that's what your worth is right now.
Yes.
So you can find something better, but you have to work for it. And so just sharpen your skills from the bottom, and people will notice that. If you're working at McDonald's, cook the best damn fries you can. And people will notice, man, fries are always better when this guy's here. Man, we're not getting behind when this guy's here. Man, we're just get better at whatever you're doing. And that will translate into bigger things. And you will learn how to learn. Okay. And learn how to work. So that's important, is just never be too good for any job.
So true. And yeah, somebody will take notice, just like the new hire that we had. He's probably going to have the potential to be a supervisor or a lead. All he needs is that one person to mentor him, and he'll be fine. He will probably have a long career there. We see the potential. And the other point I wanted to bring out, like that's great advice. And thank you for sharing that. You did mention, it's the Only Women Entrepreneurs podcast. And maybe our audience is scratching their heads. Well, why are we talking about this? Because it applies to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. It's just good, solid advice that applies to anyone out there, young people that are in between careers, people that are struggling. One thing that we have to learn is we got to work together as a team, because through teamwork, we're going to solve these severe issues that we're going through right now. And I want to have more male guests on the show because they give us a perspective that's different from the female perspective. And it's like all people are welcome everywhere. It's just we have this kind of like mentality, whether it's our school system, the political system, or it could be just the schools saying, no, you're just geared for that type of industry, so don't even bother going that. That's not true. Every door, there's a possibility. You just got to be willing to knock. And like you said, look the person in the eye, firm handshake, and say, here, how can I be of service? How can I contribute to your company? And the opportunities will come, and do the best you can do. And like you said, if it's just a person that's working at McDonald's, or it could be BK, and you're flipping burgers or making fries, like you said, do the best job you possibly can, because you will get noticed, and then you will be able to, based on that experience, move up to a more a job that has a little bit more responsibility, and it's better paying. It's like life is a ladder. You take one step at a time, and you just keep going, and the sky's the limit. Like we live in the best part of the world where opportunities are there. They're not going to fall on my lap because I'm watching, a TV show. You got to go out there, walk out the front door and see what you can find. And if you can't find it, always ask for help. Like you can reach out to James and Casey, or you can reach out to me, because we're here. We have the experience, we have the resources, and we will guide you into your journey. And then that's so important that we need to work together as a society. It doesn't matter who we are and where we're coming from. Yeah.
And I just want to say too, from my perspective, and I just want to preface that with like from a dude's perspective, and again, employer perspective, somebody who works with a lot of women. We've had women on our crew the entire time I've been in the industry, multiple. In fact, I just hired another one Friday. What I've experienced from my perspective, I don't discriminate against somebody if they're a woman. And for the most part, industry-wide, they don't. Now, I know, and I've talked to a lot of women. Some women say, I've never seen a difference from being a woman, but there are people out there who will discriminate. But those people are assholes to everybody. Okay? They're not just assholes to you because you're a woman. They're just assholes.
Yes.
And what I want to say to the women out there is if you do join the industry, it's male dominated, right? I mean, there's no beating around the bush on that. I think that women need to be marketed to more because they're 50% of the population, and we should. Why are we not marketing to them? And some construction companies still have the guys that we don't want women on our crew, and that is true, But there's a lot who don't care, and there's a lot that see you as a human, not as a woman, and if you go in there, again, you have to go in there just like anybody else. Be hungry, be willing to learn. And most women are better about this than men. They have less pride, and not in pride in what their work, or pride in what they do, or how good of a job they do, but just they're more humble. They're more willing to just say, I don't know shit. Help me out here. And that's what everybody loves to see, is somebody who says, I don't know. It's somebody who can say that phrase right there. They can go a long ways if they can speak up when they say, I don't know. But the biggest thing I want to tell the women out there is don't try to be a man. Be a woman in the industry. Okay.
Be yourself. Yeah.
Be yourself, because I've seen both ways. I've seen the women who try so hard to be one of the guys that they just get really annoying. Okay. Just be yourself. Like the women
That's
I
a very
work
good
with.
point.
Yeah. And I see a lot of women do that. They lose themselves, but also be tough enough that, like, guys will come on to you and they'll say, oh, let me do that for you. You shouldn't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. Stand your ground. Just be like, no, fuck you, dude. Let me do it. Because your boss will see that. Your boss will see the guys, oh, let me do that, blah, blah, blah. And if you say it enough times, like, I don't want your help. Now, there's times when you need to ask for help. I find that line, right? But
exactly.
Edge words, right, Casey?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's not to say that there won't be any struggles, because when I started in the family business, I didn't start in the office. I started on the shop floor. Okay. And so my father-in-law was teaching me, and when I started progressing in different things, the guys there would test me. So I would go to a machine, and I would look at the machine to make sure the setup was correct. And if it wasn't, I would adjust the settings. But the guys there would purposely change the settings to test me. Right. And I didn't get pissed off about it because we had a reputation that was at stake, and the reputation was quality and service. And it was up to me. It didn't matter if I was a woman or a guy. It was my own individual responsibility to make sure that machine was set right. I couldn't rely on the last person that used it. So going back to your point, individual responsibility, stand your ground. And if you don't know something, ask for help. You will get respect, because by the time, I finished my training, I was able to start and finish orders from scratch, and they were actually perfect, and they set new standards in our industry, where the guys started taking notice and said, you know what, maybe we should do it this way. It looks more efficient and looks actually cleaner. So they picked up from me, and then they realized that I was a team player. I was there as a person to contribute, and they kind of felt at ease, because I think one of the biggest fears that guys have when women come onto the show or onto the shop floor is, are they going to jeopardize my job? Because if they fuck things up, you know what? The reputation goes out the window. We lose customers, and then I'm going to be out the door. I'm going to be out of job. Yeah. And that's, you know what? It's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that once guys get warmed up, especially if they've never been on a crew with women on it, it is a different dynamic, of course. But I think that once you just realize you're in it as a team and everybody's got their own unique perspectives and backgrounds, it becomes a non-noticed thing. And like the women that we've had on our podcast, because we have a lot of women on our podcast, and I love that. I used to ask this question more, and lately I haven't really need to ask it. I'm like, well, have you dealt with any issues or any things like that as a woman in the industry? And a lot of them are like, I mean, not really. No. Like, just, yeah, you deal with assholes, but
but they're assholes to everybody, though.
They're assholes to everybody. Yeah. Right. And it might even say things like, there was one girl who came on here, and she's my age. And I feel like age plays a lot more in it to a girl who's in her early 20s in the industry. I think that people say, well, like her thing was, a guy said to her one time, that little girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, that guy's probably an asshole to everybody, for one. And for two, it's probably more of just, she's young and I don't like being told what to do by somebody younger than me. I think it has less to do with being a woman, because I dealt with that too whenever I was like 21, Yeah. But humility is a big thing. And you get women in the industry that do suck, and they are assholes, but just as you get men in the industry that suck and are assholes, no one people group is great and perfect all the time, right?
Correct.
My wife worked with somebody her old job that she was like that. She was a Hispanic woman, and she was just an absolute cancer to work with. And everything was, well, it's because I'm a woman and this, and my wife would be like, I don't have any issues with any of these people. She's like, well, it's because I'm a Hispanic woman and I'm an immigrant. My wife's like, I'm an immigrant. I'm not even a citizen, because she's German. She's like, it has nothing to do with that shit. It's just that you are not a pleasant person to be around.
Yeah. And then, like you said earlier, those are the cancers that need to be extracted from the company, because you know what, they put a bad spin on their group of people, right? So all women are going to be looked upon like that, or all guys are going to be looked upon like that. And you know what? Everybody has to be judged on their individual merit. And yes. And if they heed to the advice that we spoke about, I think everybody's going to be fine. You know what, guys? I can spend hours and hours talking to you, and I'm going to have you back on the show, because we just barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to talk about.
Yeah, we're just warmed up. What are you talking about?
You're getting us fired up.
Yeah. No, it's been almost 2 hours, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been almost 2 hours. I appreciate the serious conversation we had. We had some great laughs, and I'm going to wrap it up. And I just wanted to let our audience know, where can they find you so that they connect, and maybe they have questions, maybe they're interested in a career in what you guys are doing, or maybe just your program. Where can they go?
Yeah. So hit us up. We're on social media, pretty much all platforms at Dirty and Driven. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can find our podcast anywhere that you can find podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I mean, all the major ones,
Yep.
You can find us anywhere. And then if you want to work with us, we have our website, dirtyandriven.com. And that link is in all of our bios as well on our social media. But you can go to dirtyandriven.com and you can just click connect. If you want to work with us, we have a page on there that you can fill out. Just tell us kind of who you are, what you do, a little bit of background. We'll schedule a call based off of that page. So if you're a business owner or a leader or somebody in marketing at your company and you're like, man, we want to develop a good culture and start doing things, or maybe you just want a keynote speaker, somebody to just speak to your exec team or some of your foreman or something like that, just hit us up. We're happy to do that. Just fill out one of those forms on our website and it'll be sent to us and we'll reach out and we'll schedule a call and kind of see what you're wanting to do.
That's fantastic.
And you can also, like I said, follow us on at Dirty and Driven. That if you message us, you'll talk to me. And then if you have questions for Casey, you can also message through there, or you can follow you at what?
KCD 369.
Yep. On the Instas.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey, and before we wrap up, you said a word that I was wanting to say. You appreciated the time with us. We appreciate the time with you.
Oh yeah.
And I was going to mention, and I know we're wrapping up, but we're
all about the Midwestern goodbye here.
Yeah. Our Midwestern goodbye is like 30 minutes later.
So it's okay. I'm used to it. I'm Italian descent. So we go through the whole family, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing to help keep being employed and keeping the work out there and keeping the jobs and keeping good relations in life and stuff is and you just did it, is to let someone know that you appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank
you so much. That is so nice. And like I said, I've been personally blessed with my life and the opportunities I've been given. And I felt that it was like a calling for me to go out and help other people, because I'm just seeing our society just falling apart. And I'm seeing a lot of depression. I'm seeing people with substance abuse. And I don't want to see a society suffering, and I want to reach out to as many people as possible to give them that hope, that opportunity. And if I can't personally help them, I want to grow my resources so that I can put them in the direction where they have the help, and then they come back years down the road and say, it was because you took that interest in me or you did the podcast that you saved me. And that's really important for me at this point in my life, making that difference. And I have to say thank you so much for you guys, because I wouldn't be here having this discussion without people joining and sharing their stories and their thoughts and their experiences. And of course, I urge our audience to make sure they subscribe to your podcast, to my podcast, because that's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to get our message out. We can't do it alone. I don't see any boundaries. I see one just human race where we're all good when we're working together and we're on the same team. So make sure that you share it with someone, and that way we can resolve the huge skilled labor shortages that we're experiencing. We encourage people to go into entrepreneurship. You can find us on all the platforms as well: YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And I would greatly appreciate a 5-star review so that I know that I'm serving my community. And for our listeners that need help with their career, entrepreneurship, guidance, or even companies that are struggling to get employees to even consider working at their place, you know what? Just hit me up on my website, onlywomenentrepreneurs.com, and I give out free consultations where I'm just going to have some questions, and we're just going to do an audit of what your needs are and make suggestions on how we can make those improvements. Please stay connected with us on social media at Only Women Entrepreneurs, and that way you can engage with our community of women and men that are trying to make society better. And I personally answer all the messages on Instagram, so hit me up with a comment or a question, and I'll be glad to answer it for you. So thank you, Casey and James, for being on the show, and thank you again, audience, for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing everyone on the next episode.
Yeah, leave a 5-star review, guys, and share the show. I don't to anybody who's not a podcast host out there, you don't realize how much that means to us. Whenever you're somebody like Rosemary or myself and Casey, we put a lot of time and effort into this. We spend a lot of money on this stuff, and we just leaving a review and sharing the show saying, hey, I got value out of this is a free and easy way that you can support us and let us know that we're doing it. So give her a 5-star review if you like this, or if you think that we're just dumb hicks, give her a 5-star review and just state James and Casey's episode was absolutely horrible and we'd never want to hear it again. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the plug, and all the best to your initiatives. And again, we'll have to hook up again because, like I said, we barely scratched the surface. There's so much more content that we can create together.
You tell us when. We like to talk shit in the microphones.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Thanks.
All the
Thank
best.
You. My God.
All right.
Bye.